Hi, everyone. Welcome to this moment with Caroline and Lisa. We're here in the Diamond Mothering, and we are creating this beautiful, happy place for mothers. And we'll see you back here in a second.
Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us today as we have a conversation with a really inspirational lady who I have known for some time. And Karen Chaston is here with us. And I just wanted to say, I was reading over her bio and I just mentioned to her before that, when you meet people and you are really inspired by them and they help you, and Karen's always gone out of her way to support me, and I've been so grateful for that. I've never really sat down and really read over her bio and the things that she's done. And what I knew her for was the experiences she's been through. I hadn't actually known her for the things that she's done. They're both just so remarkable. Such an incredible tapestry of achievement in the corporate world and also in her own business. But for her experiences, and I'm sure we'll end up sharing about this, she's had experiences where she's had to adopt out a child, and she's actually made that reconnection to bring healing to that situation. And she's also lost a child, and they are just such massive experiences for any mother. One of those is such a massive experience. So I hope that can sort of indicate to you what an incredibly powerful woman this is. And I am just so excited to welcome her here to have a conversation with her. Welcome, Karen.
Thank you, Lisa. And hello, Caroline. It's so exciting to be here. But I have to say, thank you for those beautiful words. But just watching your intro then, because I hadn't seen it before, I got all teary.
Really?
And the reason I got all teary was I grew up in a family of 6 girls and a boy. And the boy's the baby, and yes, the boy's the golden child. And I'm the third eldest of those girls. And I just thought, how amazing would it have been? Like, I was born in 57. So how amazing would it have been for something like this for us all to connect? And all of my sisters are very different, which is exactly what every family is meant to be. That's how you create balance. But I just think it would have brought us more together. And I love what you guys are doing. So good on you. I shouldn't say guys. You beautiful women are doing.
Thank you so much, Karen. I'm really thrilled to have you here as well, because I was honoured to sit with you, have a beautiful conversation a few months ago now, I think it was.
Yeah.
And we got to know each other through the Campfire Project. And it's just, I was so inspired by your story as well. And, I think there's a lot of, I feel we have a lot in common as well, just the way we see the world. And, I know you have a Love by Design. You have done that before as well. So I just love that, and it's just gorgeous to have a chance to have to sit in your company again. It's just wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So what are we going to talk about, girls?
Well, I would love to hear. I'd love to hear about your story. Like what those pivotal moments were for you in your life that actually you found actually took you further towards your own feminine force. Those pivotal moments and the lead up to them. Those juicy bits that are just so inspirational for other women to hear. That's what I'd love to hear.
Okay. Well, it's really funny that, like as you mentioned, I adopted my daughter out when I was 16, and that was a pivotal moment. But it was a moment that I never, I always knew about her, and I always thought about her, and I always wondered about her, because she was 27 by the time we connected. So it was a long time, but because of the trauma of it all, and my daughter and I, Kim, are deep diving into that, for the last, probably the last year, we've been really looking at it and, getting hospital records and getting all these sort of things, which I had just completely pushed down, forgotten about because of the trauma of it all. But my main pivotal moment, which I think got me out of my Groundhog Day days, which is what I was in when I was in my corporate life, you know, every day being exactly the same, every day just working. I was a lot heavier. I was angry, and I didn't even realize it, because as I looked around the space where I was working, most women were exactly the same, because we were so much into our masculine that we were actually fighting our femininity within our body. And it's really interesting is that I know that I had this little voice inside of me, you know, when are you going to start loving your life? When are you going to start living your life? When are you really going to start doing it? When it was like a drum beat. It was sort of like a tribal sort of calling. And I'm sure, you know, the way you girls are nodding, you've obviously had that inside you as well. And I'm just getting shivers. But it was only when Dan passed, and even to be quite honest, you know, when Dan passed, and it was in July, 10th of July, excuse me, 2011. And my husband and I literally woke up that morning. It was a Sunday morning, thinking we were going to have a lazy day at home. But within minutes, we were running out that back door, looking at him lying there in the fetal position, thinking that he had just passed out. But unfortunately, he passed away a few hours earlier. But, you know, me being my corporate self and not understanding loss or grief the way I do now, I literally went straight back to work the day after his funeral. Working harder, eating more, drinking more, and being in that sort of space until I had to get another loss event, which came 15 months later when my company was merging with another. And through that process, I ended up choosing redundancy, which I'm pretty sure if I hadn't have chosen redundancy, I would have got another loss event, which probably would have been a health scare or something else like that, because I was definitely meant to be on this path. But it's just, I guess life directs you on where to go and where to be and who to be if you're willing to listen. And most of us are so caught up in that Groundhog Day days that we don't even have any space to be quiet to listen.
That was a really traumatic experience for you, Karen. Like, and you can see how your life is kind of being designed from that point, kind of. But it just goes to show how massive a shock that it takes sometimes to change that kind of shift, that dynamic that you've been living through. You know, like you're saying, even after you lost your son, so tragic. Like it's just heartbreaking story, you know. But the fact that you kind of still went back to what you knew, like, you know, and it kind of like you're nearly disconnected from, kind of like trying to get away from it nearly, do you think?
Yeah, I was. Yeah. I was in total avoidance. And let's face it, we've created a world where we can literally be in avoidance all day long. You know, social media, Netflix, all that, shopping, you know, shopping, we even call it retail therapy. Yeah. Like, you know, it's just avoidance, and eating too much, drinking too much, working too much. All of those things are avoidance. And most of us are avoiding deep diving into our past events, deep diving into the feelings that they create, you know, good, bad, glad, sad, whatever they are. But yeah, it's an interesting journey when you start to do that deep dive within yourself, which I know both of you have done, and it's cracks you open. It's like you come out of a shell, isn't it? And you go, oh, wow, this is who I am now. I've been reborn, and I'm really loving who I am. But I do feel that it is a journey that most of us will take, and we desired to take it. Because without finding out who you are, without your ego being the dominant feature in it, I don't think you can really live and love your life.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, I think, what you're saying about, you know, how you were kind of in the corporate world and you had kind of moved away from your femininity, because like sometimes that can look very successful, because, you know, you're doing really well in your corporate world and you've got that lifestyle, and then you're kind of nearly trapped in it because, you know, you're after, you've got, you know, from the outside it looks really good, and other people it's harder to walk away from it when you have that success, you know. And like people would say, well, you know, but I think the inner kind of angst increases when that the success increased. Because I know myself, like when my parents broke up when I was 18, and I kind of just went into hyper mode of kind of my career. So I did really, really well. And like I was by 25 senior designer, only female senior designer in the top agency in the top agency in Dublin, working with like all the top brands and, you know, all over the world. And it's kind of like as if, but in the background, like there was so much happening in my family and stuff like that. But how I reacted was like, just go into work, because it's much easier, because you can deny your emotions. You don't have to deal with that, you know,
Yeah.
until then, like I start getting kind of physical problems, like, you know, and I didn't understand what was happening in my body, you know. I was kind of like, what's going on here? You know, I was having digestion problems and headaches and different things like that, until then I started working for myself, and I started to kind of redesign for my life from the inside out, you know, and starting to take control and making conscious decisions around how I wanted to live my life and have more of a balance, we'll say, you know. But it's taken years to kind of undo that conditioning. And I think, you know, it's interesting for me to have this conversation in space and bringing women together to talk about that, because I feel there is a way of having a very successful life as a woman and being a businesswoman, but having your femininity first, you know. I think that's a beautiful opportunity to offer that to women, you know, that they don't have to, if they want to be successful in the world, have to do it in a masculine business corporate way. It can be done in a beautiful way that's kind of connected, and it's not about competition but collaboration with other women, different businesses, and men that are like-minded, you know. So I think it's really exciting what can flower from that, like what you were talking about. I was talking about the bud blossom flourishing, that you can, you know, you're kind of breaking open, you know, into your truth, but you can grow in that beautiful kind of feminine true way. Do you agree, Karen? Like from your
I totally agree. And I have to say, Caroline, your corporate career sounds so much more interesting than mine. I was an accountant.
It was very exciting.
It does sound very exciting. I can see why it was hard to leave it. But you know, in saying that, I loved my life. I loved my the company I work for and all of that. But you know, you got to always give an accountant joke wherever you can. But
we need accountants. We do.
Yeah, exactly. But what I also, from what you were saying, then it's so important for women to realize. One of the easiest way for you to realize that maybe you are not in your true essence is the anger part about it, because I was always angry. And it's probably because you're fighting yourself. You know, your masculine and your feminine are fighting, and the masculine's winning, and you need both. Like, I'm not saying you don't need both within yourself, and we need both within the world, but it is about finding that balance. And not long after I left my corporate, I heard this thing. Thing on, I can't even remember. It was an online TV show, a health and wellness one. And they actually said, if you're always angry, you require more green in your life. And when I heard that, I thought, oh my God, that is so true. And for probably about 2 years at that stage, I had been green juicing every morning. And I thought, yes, you know, I am so much more calmer with that. But then I took it a bit further. You need to be in nature. You need to be surrounded by nature. And then the next step is green is the color of the heart chakra. So you require more love in your life if you are angry all the time. Not only love for everyone else, but love for yourself. And that's the thing that I know I was missing. I wasn't looking after myself. And that's where I really feel that any woman who is listening to this, go to that anger part. Are you angry all the time? Do you fly off the handle over silly little things? Whereas before you would have just let that fly past, but you're picking it up and you're digging into it and you're causing these big arguments, probably unconsciously. But that's the first really telltale sign that maybe you're not living in your essence more than anything else. And we
that's beautiful, Karen. I'm relating that to a couple of clients that I've had that have been very angry lately, and the those insights, just it's so interesting, isn't it, how we get so trapped in our lives, like you were saying, in these diversions, and we think it's about fixing that, making that right. We've got to make that right. We've got to make that right and we'll feel better. But actually, it's all what's going on inside. It's like that is just the manifestation of what needs to be fixed on the inside of us, and using everything. Like I say, we're sort of like, I can't remember the name of the female detective that worked with Sherlock Holmes in that movie, and I've got to remember it because we're female Sherlock Holmes, right? And it's almost like we're following all the clues. We get a clue, which is a feeling, and then it's like, and that's exciting because it's leading us to this solution. It's leading us to this place each time we have a clue. And it's like the anger is a clue. It's like, okay, this is really guiding us to where we need to go next, to the clue we need to pick up next and work with. And
you want the second clue?
Yeah.
You want the second clue?
Go.
The second clue I've found is if you don't like being by yourself. Because a lot of people are not comfortable in their own company.
That's very true, actually.
Yeah, and that's the second clue. If you are comfortable, like I love it when I have the whole weekend to myself.
Me too.
It doesn't happen very often, but I just love it. And people are like, oh my God, I couldn't even spend an hour by myself. And you go, right. Start to do the deep dive into yourself and become your own best friend. And then you will start looking after yourself. You will treasure the time that you owe yourself. But you also start thinking differently. The way you talk to yourself becomes more positive. It becomes more, what's the word I'm looking for?
Nurturing.
Possibilities. Possibility.
Yeah.
Whereas most of us grew up with the language of necessity and you have to do this, it's this. Whereas when you move your language from necessity to possibility, that in itself just broadens your whole world.
Yeah, it's opening up that world, isn't it? Because, you're kind of coming out from that tight little, I would say it's kind of like when you're in a tight corner. And that's when you kind of feel tight and you there's nowhere to go and like you feel you don't have any options. And that's kind of like the anger thing, isn't it? Because like I'm trapped in this and I can't get out of it, and it just feels very tight and closed. And, it's like actually, I always feel like it's actually like, it's really like your potential is in too small of a space, It's like, because it's a build up of pressure, And then when you start to open up your mind into new possibilities, then you have room to grow, and it's a natural thing. Then, like, because you start to get immediate relief, don't you? You know, yeah.
It's interesting because it's a perspective, right? Like when we're sitting here thinking we have to change outside, and it's all about the outside. We're this big, but when we actually sit inside and we look out, and it's about us and how we relate to that and where we're at in ourselves, then it's it's so big. It's like, when I'm in my head, my world is this small. When I'm in my heart, my world is infinite. It's
I love that, Lisa.
That thing, and you can feel the difference, right? I know when I'm walking, if I start to get busy in my head, I can feel the difference. Like all of a sudden, I'm this small, and I sort of move my awareness to my heart, and it's like, oh, I'm expansive again. Like you can actually feel the difference in your being, and it's just, it's so powerful.
I love what both of you say.
Horizon. I love a horizon because it's like infinite possibilities, and there's nothing more beautiful than looking at a horizon and just going, yes.
Yeah, like a vast open space. I just love the way the two of you said there that, Karen was saying at the beginning about green going back to green. And it's like come back to nature. But when I always feel like, even tonight when I was kind of tired and I said, but instead of, the way you can go to like a sit down and watch, years ago, I would have sat down to watch something on TV. But today, instead of that, came upstairs and I opened the window, let the fresh air come in. I could hear the birds. And the minute I heard the birds, I was like, and I just kind of relaxed, because then you get that like connection to nature, but also makes you feel expansive because you feel you're part of something larger than yourself. So you're already connected, that kind of way, this beautiful kind of, you're connected to something larger than yourself, and it's got harmonious feeling, like, so it's gorgeous. And also what I was thinking of, that tightness that you were talking about, Karen, that, when you've gotten to like what the world sees as successful and you're not happy, it's hard to feel like, where else can I go? And if
Yeah.
it hasn't been modeled to you before and you haven't seen other people do it another way, then like you were saying, you don't feel there's any other possibility, you know. But then when there's people like yourself that kind of are telling their story about there's another way to live, there's another way to design your life, there's no, you know, it's so inspirational, because you can kind of feel it from you. You can see it on your face. You can see how you glow and that you have a different way of looking even, you know, because you've got that gorgeous connection with yourself, that self-love from the inside. And I know you've talked about that before, like how your physicality changed, like when you started to kind of, you know, blossom from within, you know. I'd love you to talk about that a little bit for women.
Oh, yeah. Well, I normally show these two passport photos, a 2007 one and a 2017 one. And I look 10 years younger in the 17 one than I do in the 07, because the 07 I was like right in the midst of it. It was even before Dan passed, 3 years before Dan passed. And it was, you know, I was carrying more weight, but my eyes were dead, right? And they just look like there's no one home. And it's really surprising. And sure, I made sure I had a better 17 passport. But the point is, you still can't smile in a passport, right? And I really feel that most of me is my smile sort of thing. And I make sure I always smile. So you can't smile, but it still came through like my eyes were alive and I was carrying less weight. But it was just the whole difference. And it really was the fact that I had started to connect more to me. And when you are in that corporate space and you do feel trapped more often than not, because you have all of these mortgages to pay and you have all this to pay and all these things to do. But there's a really good question. And you know, I used to work 6.5 days. Like I would work so much and it was ridiculous. It's like, why am I killing myself for a company that isn't even mine? You know what I mean? And, you know, and I got these amazing praises and all these sort of things. Like one year I got an email from the CEO. It was, you know, it was 2 pages long, telling me how I was the oracle of the company and how I set the standards. I was always the first one in and the last one to leave. And I'm like, you know, and at the time I was like, yeah. But when I reread it, I thought, oh my God, like why? Why was I killing myself for them? You know, I was on a fast track for either heart attack, stroke, type 2 diabetes. And it was about 18 months after I left my corporate role and I went to a medium. And she said to me, if you haven't reversed the disease, you're in the process of doing so. And I just went, my green juice. And I just knew that, you know, my father had a stroke. My mother had she's had 2 heart attacks. She's still alive. But my mother also has type 2 diabetes. So it's like in the family. And I have sisters who have type 2 diabetes. So I was like, and I didn't want to get that. So, you know, which was why the green juice sort of started in the first place. But it's really interesting. And I do drink it every day. And it really does make a difference. But it is about you knowing that you can heal your life no matter where you are. And you don't need as much stuff as what you think you do. Look back to when you last purchased something that you had been longing to have. And how long were you ecstatic about that? How long? And it will probably come down to 15 seconds. You know, and because then you go, oh, I've got it now. And then you go, okay, let's move on to the next thing. Sort of thing. And really start to look at how long the joy, these things that you think you have to have in your life are bringing to you. Because more than likely, it won't be very long. And does it make a difference? Like, are you really working this hard to earn this salary and you're getting actually no joy in your life? Because you can't take it with you. But you can take the love and the memorable experiences and the way that you've grown mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. That's what this journey is all about. And every single person that I work with in my Beyond Loss programs, it always comes back to loss of identity. No matter what brought them to me, loss of identity will always come up. And we start to lose it from the time we come into this world. We come into this world perfect. Like, I have 3 grandchildren around me, all under 3. The oldest will turn 3 in May. And they're just watching them grow, watching them move through their emotions with ease is such a delight. And we all used to do that. We didn't require all these avoidance tactics of food, alcohol, drug, or whatever the others are to squash our emotions. We just move through them and on to the next one. You know, if you watch a young child, you will see within an hour, they will have every single emotion you can think of.
Yeah.
And it's amazing to watch. But we all did that. So why is it now that we squash them and put them down and put them down and put them down? So as I said, I want to go back to my daughter. So my daughter, her name's Kim. I called her Liza with a Z, but her name is Kim. Her adopted parents called her Kim. And she's been in my life for over 20 years. She came into my life in 2001. I wrote a letter to her in 96 and she responded to it in 2001. And we've had a very, very volatile relationship, which you can understand, because we didn't realize exactly how much trauma that we had both been through and how much connection we also had over the time. But it's only been in the last, I'm going to say 3 years, that we've really started to let's heal each other instead of let's fight each other. And I watched an ABC documentary just the other night, which is really good timing. And because I always had in me, what sort of mother gives away their child? Like, what sort of mother? Like, you know, I always said, I did the right thing. I did the right thing. And it's watching this ABC documentary, though, it was about the birth mothers in Australia, and I'm pretty sure it's the same all over the world, on the way they were. And a social worker came on and she said, our only job was to quieten the mothers, stop them crying, and get them to sign the adoption forms. That was the only rhetoric we had. We had to shame them into it. We had to tell them that they were not capable of looking after these children, that they had these amazing people who are well educated, who are financially sound, who have beautiful homes. How could you give away, how could you keep your child and deny your child this beautiful lifestyle? Well, how are you going to support your child? Are you going to become a prostitute? Because that's what you have been already.
Wow.
And it was just, as this was thrown, it was like, oh my God, this totally explains why. Because we're like, you know, why? You know, even my mother giving away her first grandchild. And my signature on the adoption form that I signed, compared to my marriage certificate 3.5 years later, the one on the adoption was really constricted, really thin, whereas I had a bit more flow in when I got married, not to her father, to someone else. And even like now, my signature is even more flowy. So it's really interesting that no matter what happens in your life, you may have been coerced into choosing whatever you chose. And so many of us have so many events in our life that we have shame or guilt around. Go into it and realize that you probably had a lot of influences in your life that didn't have the best interests for you in mind with the things that they said. And that's my reason for sharing that more than anything else.
Yeah, that's such a powerful story, Karen. And actually, for people listening in Ireland especially, because I don't know if you're aware that we had the mother and baby homes in Ireland. We have massive problem with abuse like that, in institutional abuse, where mothers were institutionalized and their babies were taken from them for adoption all over the world.
Yeah.
And like, there's been massive trauma here in, you know, so it's beautiful for you to have the courage to be able to share that story, because it really, every time a mother shares that story, it helps other mothers to kind of, you know, to have a voice, you know, because it's happened again, and we're only just kind of uncovering it at the moment. It's really something that's just coming to light. And even especially what you're sharing there, you know, that what's been, you know, really kind of suppressed in your own, in yourself, as such, takes a lifetime now to understand the damage that was done, you know. And your daughter is living through that too,
Yeah.
So, it takes a lot of courage to go into that and to try to heal that. So it's beautiful to hear that you really kind of over the last couple of years.
Yeah. Oh, thank you.
Yeah,
We feel that this is our journey is to share it with the world, because why else would we have chosen this? Like, when Dan passed, it was okay. I was using my accounting brain. Got to find a better way, which is, how I came up with my Beyond Loss programs, a more loving way to process any kind of loss. And with Kim and I, we're together, and she's like, I don't know why we chose this life, and I don't know why we chose this life. And what we found out through me getting my hospital records was I had postpartum, I can't think what it's called. It was hemorrhaging, right? I required 2 liters of blood. We only have 5 liters in our whole body. And she also needed to be intubated. And we both were like, okay. When we read that, she goes, oh my God, I can't believe that. We both nearly died. And I said, I'm pretty sure our higher selves got together at that stage and went, are you sure we're going to live this lifestyle? And we both went, yeah, sure. But at times we're going, oh, I think we may have chosen wrong. I think we took the red pill when we should have taken the blue pill at that time, because it is so hard. But with all seriousness, we know that, we come together to heal each other, but also to assist in healing the many, many people in the world who, for whatever reason, didn't have the opportunity to bring up their child and to be with their birth family. Which is horrific. As she said, she was 27 before she found someone who she looked like, and that was her daughter. She said, and that's what made her respond to my letter. She said, I had never looked like anyone before. And we all take that for granted, that we look like our family.
And it's so hard to understand that experience for somebody until you hear it from their perspective, that kind of way, because there's so many nuances that you wouldn't even imagine because you haven't lived it. But, to hear that, because you expect, it's been so normal for the rest of us to.
I'm just, because that's what's like, I'm thinking to myself, like how so often women, and not just in this situation, it's like we get coerced. A lot of women that live with men that are dominating or partners that are narcissistic, it's this, we make choices, and they're our choices, but often you sort of come out of a relationship, you don't really, you sort of go, why was I because like there's so much coercion, this energetic and deliberate coercion by other people of our own intuition, and it is so coerced that we just don't have the power to actually speak up.
Society as well. It's, you got to think about the last couple of years, and we won't go into that. But there's so much coercion going on. But there's so many lobbyists around. Like I think back to, why was it that, a couple who were wealthy, who couldn't have a child's needs, were put above a mother and a child? And that's all it was. And you think, well, it's the lobbyists. They had the money. They were being, they paid for their baby, which means whoever was selling my baby and other babies were getting money for it. So it always comes back to that money and power, that you think, oh my God, like, really?
But society's never going to change if money is king. You know what I mean? That's at the root of it all. You know what I mean? If people's well-being was at number one, we wouldn't have these issues, So that's for society, each individual to decide on what they're going to choose in their life, and what they're going to, who they're going to support, as in leadership, as in companies, the people that they buy from, as in, because we have control. And if we make that decision ourselves that we're not going to support those corporations or people or enterprises or organizations, whatever, that are have that type of mentality, then things will change. But it takes people to make that.
It does. But in making your decision about anything, it's like, okay, so what is behind this? That's what I guess I have been doing now for quite a few years, is let's look at a different perspective and listen to the agenda or the rhetoric and just actually go, but what's another alternative? And what's the real reason behind this? You know, they like to say, everyone's looking over here, but over here they're doing all these other things. And you go, what is over here?
And it's not until you connect with yourself really that you start to see, you get that clarity, don't you? Because you can kind of, you get your intuition back and you kind of have that confidence that you're making those conscious decisions, you know, that kind of way, and you're kind of guided in that, and you're more, you have more self-sovereignty, like, you know, we talk about a lot of times, you know, so, and I think that's beautiful because women have so much kind of that feminine power, you know, that, you know, we can bring an awful lot of, like, when you talk about accountancy, but like all that is so important in business and in, you know, supporting other women with you know, with business, with accountancy, with, you know, these courses that you can provide in all different areas that will support women that are trying to bring, you know, this new feminine kind of force to the world. So it's kind of an exciting time as well, you know, because just a great
finding our voice, which is beautiful.
And I love that what you were just saying about how you can start to see different layers of reality the more you get to know yourself. And that's definitely what I've found. It's like there's this incredible clarity that opens up for you, even in other people that you're in relationship with. When you once saw them like this monodimensional and you were reacting to that, now you can start to see all these other things that are going on for them, because you can actually do that for yourself, like those being able to sit with yourself and do that internal investigation and have a relationship with yourself. It's like, you know, okay, I'm reacting like this, but what's really going on? Or I'm thinking this, but where is that really, you know, that's actually really got nothing to do with this person. That's actually got to do with an experience I had like 10 years ago. And you can actually, you know, really draw these threads where you can really learn about yourself and see what's going on, which actually means you can heal it, right? Because you then have the power to do something about it, because you can see the root cause of the behaviors that you have. So good. And I'd like to ask you, so what really interests me is after you lost your son, that must have been an incredible journey of awakening for you. And I can totally hear how you've stepped back into like your own presence and really come into your own inner power through that process. And I'd love you to just share some of the things that you would, because it would have been massive. Like I cannot imagine how you could actually move through that much emotional pain. Like I've had emotional pain, but I cannot imagine losing a child. That is just like beyond most mothers' comprehension. So to move through that and find this power, I would love to hear a little bit about that part of your journey, if you don't mind sharing.
Yeah. I have no problem sharing. So I guess one of the things, I've always had a spiritual mind, even though I was an accountant. I was brought up Catholic, but it went beyond that. Like I stopped practicing at 18 when I left home. I literally always had a spiritual essence. I always knew there was more to me. I always knew there was more. And in 2001, one of my sisters directed me towards a book called Life on the Other Side by Sylvia Brown. Now, Sylvia Brown, she's passed away, but she was a American medium channeler. And through her guide, she wrote this book. And they actually explained what we do before we come down, how we plan our life, how we plan the players, who we are, all those sort of things. And then what we do when we're here, and then what happens when we go back. So I read that book in 2001. Dan passed in 2011. And because he suddenly passed, like we thought a healthy 27-year-old had gone out the night before. Sure, he drank too much, but that wasn't what killed him. What killed him was his lungs failed him. So when he came home and fell over while he was trying to pick up his key, for some reason he didn't take his key with him, so his girlfriend left it out. He fell over, everything shook up, but he couldn't catch his breath, right? So that's what killed him. And so because he passed so suddenly, a lot of people were not coping. So I bought 10 copies of that book and I handed it out. Now, that book to me is like a Bible for us all to live our life, because it really does show us that we plan our life, we plan our experiences and all those sort of things. And knowing that when we go back, we will be greeted by all of our past loved ones, and we will have a party, but we'll also do a life review. This is what you said you're going to do, and this is what you did. Why are there differences? And there will always be differences because it's a lot more denser down here. So that explains who I am. But in saying that, I went into total avoidance for 15 months, 20 months, until I knew about my redundancy. From then, I knew I wasn't going to be an accountant anymore. I knew I was going to be doing something different. I had no idea what I was going to be doing, but life just gave me all these things, these stepping stones. And one of the first stepping stones that I had, which I had been connected to this group called Braveheart Women, in America since 2009, and every now and then I'd look at their emails, and then I'd put it to the side and then never go back to them. I think it was probably 3 weeks after I knew of my redundancy. Now, I still had to work for 6 months, right, after because that was the contract. We both had to give 6 months notice. So I knew of my redundancy, and this email came in and it said, "Are you a corporate woman who seems to go so far and then you're brought back down and then you go up and then you come down?" And I went, "Oh, she's speaking my language. That is me," sort of thing. And then she had an hour video attached to it, Dr. Ellie Drake, and it was literally explaining why I needed to be in LA for this 4-day conference. And I went. And it was the most amazing conference I have ever been to, because it deep dived into women, into our bodies, explaining to us. And I was in my early 50s, right, when this happened. And it was like what adrenaline does to a woman's body, what cortisol does to a woman's body, why we're not in our essence, all of these things. And I'm going, oh my God, my girlfriend and I, we wrote notes for 4 days and we went, oh my God, how amazing is this? So I signed up to do their life coaching program, which was amazing because it gave me the essence of women. I probably went too much more into my feminine during that stage, but it was a good grounding for me to understand who we are, why we will always be different in the corporate world, why we require our femininity, we require the masculinity, but we need to have that balance in that thing, and explaining everything. And I thought originally I was going to be coaching women on how to stay as women in that environment and not turn into a man like I did. But it never took off, right? But meanwhile, I was working on me. And then I had this amazing lady who was helping me with my marketing, and she said to me, after we met with a lady from Macquarie Bank, it's an investment bank here in Australia, Caroline. Okay. And when I was meeting with this lady, I just went in my head, I don't want to be around these women. I don't want to work with these women. Oh my God, I've spent 3 years trying to build this business and I don't want to even be around them. I used to be that woman and there's no way I would have ever listened to me when I was that woman. What on earth am I doing? But in saying all of that, that lady was beautiful. But it was just her energy. She said nothing wrong. It was just her energy. And I was like bombarded by it. And I just went, oh my God. And then I said this to the lady after it, and she said, Karen, why aren't you working with people to move beyond loss? Like, why aren't you doing that? And I just went, yeah, I was told that years ago, but I didn't really want to. They're too sad. I was never really sad.
Too sad.
I was never sad, but I always had Dan with me. Okay. I always had Dan in my head. Every book I've written has come from Dan. Everything I've done has come from Dan. I spend more time with Dan than I do with his siblings. And he's constantly in my head. He's the co-founder of the Chaston Centre. And, you know, he's constantly with me. We all constantly have our past loved ones with us, talking to us, guiding us, showing us that they're with us. You know, like Dan is dragonflies and rainbows. I know it's him. My dad are feathers. And they come continually to me all the time, to the point that if I'm in a really bad place, I'll get a dragonfly right there in my face as if to say, what do you mean? And then he'll, sort of thing. So he's constantly with me. So I think in saying that, it's the beliefs you have, the beliefs that become a knowing. When I read Life on the Other Side by Sylvia Browne in 2001, that was my first knowing book. I read it. I've never heard this before, but I know it's true. I've never heard this before, but I know it's true. And that, to me, I've read many, many knowing books since then. And I guess that's what it's about, is the more that you deep dive into you and the more that you start to read books that help you to become you, and I have so many of them I can recommend to so many people, that I feel is the first step in doing anything in your life. Find you, love you, back you is the most important thing you can do, because when you do that, everything changes. All of your relationships change. Like, there's no way Kim and I could have ever come together if I hadn't have taken those first steps to find me, because I was too much in my ego, too much, but I did the right thing. I did the right thing. Sure, you had an amazing life. You had that better life, which is what it was all about. She goes, yeah, but I wanted you. You know what I mean? And that's the thing. And I was like, but I couldn't even, I kept repelling that, but I wanted you, because that didn't fit the rhetoric and that didn't fit in my ego space. So I had to find me before her and I could develop a relationship. And there's only ever two people in any relationship. And if you think it's all that other person that's causing you all this grief, you haven't done the deep dive into you, and you're not being honest with yourself. Because no one goes from honeymoon to divorce through one situation. It takes a long road.
And that's really interesting. That makes me think a little bit about my journey, and how doing this inner investigation, the inner contemplation, and how important that is to be with me and build that relationship. But also, and what I'm assuming too, like, we can't, while that is a big part of it, we also do need to develop our skills sometimes in certain areas. And and actually, for me, working with Carolyn has been such a blessing, because the knowledge that I have, and Carolyn comes in and goes, and I do this, and I'm like, wow, that's a very cool technique, or that's a really cool skill, like just really distilling down, and some of the things that Carolyn does, like the skills that she's developed to find herself, and so yes, we are intuitive beings, and I believe, and what I've seen is that the inner me is always willing to guide me and always knows what to do if I actually spend the time to go and clock in. Sometimes those things mean that I need to, or I get the guidance to go and connect with this person and build those skills. So you must have also been building skills,
all the way along. When I was in my corporate world, I used to look at the CEOs and I used to go, wow, look at them up there on stage talking in front of everyone. I could never do that. And here I am, like, grab the hook, get her off the stage, sort of thing, because it is, you just don't realize how much you hold yourself back. And I totally understand that most people think that speaking in public is the worst thing you can do, even worse than death, but it's not. Once you have a passion for what you're talking about, that's what you find. So it is about finding that passion, and then you can speak about it forever, and you'll deep dive into it, and you'll expand and expand and expand. I was an accountant. I never thought I could write. I was hopeless at English at school. I'm in the process of writing my 6th book. Wow. And sure, the first book isn't as good as what the 5th or the 6th book's going to be, but it doesn't matter. Neither was the first video I did, or neither was, it is, we're constantly improving our skills. And you're so right, Lisa. I've got, so many programs that I have learned. Even my Beyond Lost programs came from a bit of learning this from so-and-so and learning this and learning this, and then bringing them together and then adding my magic to it. That's how you come up with a program. But you can't, it is about learning and growing and broadening your perspective and realizing that we limit ourselves in so many ways, and we don't forgive ourselves. We're so hard on ourselves. Our perfectionism is not serving us in any way. And to realize that really is, I guess, the greatest gift you can give to anyone. Because we are all unique human beings, and we are imperfectly perfect. But it's about realizing that and knowing that. And yes, there are so many tools that you'll pick up along the way, whether you just use them for yourself or whether you use them in your programs and you share them with other people. That's the thing. And we live in a world where I think just about everything's been invented. Like, you know, we've been having these guides coming down forever. It's about you finding your essence and your flavor to it.
So let's just go into that a bit, like, because we've just talked about learning skills, and that's information, right? That's head knowledge. And yep, sometimes we get to a place where we need extra skills.
Yeah.
But this is not about learning more information. What you're, and I'd love you to share on this too, what we're speaking about. This is the activation of the heart. This is the heart knowing. Yes, we need sometimes a little bit more information, but it's actually not about more information, because I think this is where a lot of people, and I know I used to get trapped there. I just go, I need to do another workshop. I need more information. I need that to fix this, you know. And like, so there's always this search for more information, but it was like not about that at all. It's about the heart knowing, and then you might need to add some skills. Like, how do you want to have a little bit of a share about that too? Because I just really want to make that discernment for people, because I think that we can get very easily lost in the let's just keep learning, you know, pathway.
I do agree with you, but I think initially going from corporate to whatever, you do need some learning, head learning. But and it doesn't have to be like book intelligence and stuff. It could be learning for where you want to go, whatever drive, wherever you feel you are being driven, whatever your purpose is, you know, where are you driven? And I personally think your purpose comes from the tragedies that you've had in your life, and whatever you've overcome. That's I think is the easiest. People go, I don't know what purpose is, and I go, look at your life. Just do your life. And one of the things that we do in the beginning of my Beyond Lost programs is we track our life. We do a graph on our life, listing all the good up the top above the line, and all of the bad below the line, because that will give you clues. And most people don't do it. It's in their head, you know, it's in their memory. But if you actually see it on paper, your life, you will find your purpose quite easily in that, because you will see not only what will real highlight is how resilient you are. And a lot of people don't think they're resilient. But the journey, the longest journey you will ever take in your life is from here to here. What is it, 8 inches? I don't know, 12 inches at the most. You know, most men would love 8 inches. But anyway, that's the journey they need to take, not the other journey sort of thing. But in all seriousness, though, getting into your heart, breathing into your heart, feeling into your heart, like really breathing consciously. I like to, which is what I learned through Braveheart Women, was a conscious, loving breath. Now, when you do a conscious, loving breath, you intentionally breathe all the way down into your belly, because that's where your intuition is. That's where your gut feeling is. But in there is the nerve endings of the vagus nerve, which goes all the way up to your hypothalamus, which is the brain center, right? Command center. So when you breathe into there, into 3 or 4 breaths, that brings you into your parasympathetic nervous system, and that will put you into your rest and restore. From there, you then start consciously breathing into your heart. So before you consciously breathed all the way, now you breathe into your heart. Then you see the breath going out into the world, and you start spreading it more and more and more. And the more that you spread it, the more you become this being that's sort of just floating in the world, and you realize how connected you are. I feel that once you feel connected to the world through your heart, that is the best time for you to start asking yourself the questions and getting the answers. And then when you receive the answers, be conscious of where the answer comes in your body, right? Especially if it's about a core, something that you need to heal, because then you look up what that part means, even on the chakra system. Like, did you get it in your solar plexus or in your heart? What does that mean? Did you get it in your throat? Oh, right, I didn't use my voice. What's all this about? So it's about understanding. Even that may be the first thing you do, is deep dive into the chakra system, deep dive into your body, start to understand it. Like, there's this book that I just so love, and it just so happens to be here. I didn't think it would be. This is one of the best books you can ever get and
Wow.
read. The Secret Language of Your Body by Ina Segal. It deep dives into the meaning, the feeling of what is going on in your body. And it highlights that if you have back pain, it will tell you what it relates to. It'll even give you a little exercise to do to heal it. So start to understand who you are mentally, emotionally, physically, and spiritually. Because when you're connected all of those four and aware of all of those four, that's when you can truly say, I know me.
That is so amazing, Karen. I
Does that
absolutely
answer your
love that.
question, Lisa?
Yes, it was wonderful. Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. And that's what I'm saying. Like, I did initially need that learning. Like, Braveheart Women gave me so much learning. Like, I didn't everything I just explained about the parasympathetic nervous system and the breathing and the this and that. I never knew any of that. And I'm like, why didn't we know this at school? Why weren't we told? This is really important for you to understand your physicality and what goes on in your body is really important, because then you will know, okay, I'm in my sympathetic nervous system, I'm adrenalized. How do I bring myself back quite easily so that I'm in rest and restore? And you can do it through your breath. Like, it doesn't take any money, anything, but we don't know how to use our breath properly. Most of us shallow breathe. We don't even get to our heart. We're breathing here. So we're not even getting into our organs to give them the proper oxygen to help them to be able to serve us the way that we are meant to. So, yes, I agree with you, Lisa. We all do way too much learning because we don't trust ourselves, we don't believe in ourselves, and we don't back ourselves. And it does come a stage, right, I need to know that I'm ready to be out there. And it's not easy to be out there. You think it would be, but it's not, because you will have people who will start to bring you down. But, you know, and Braveheart Women used to say to us, if you don't have people bringing you down, you're not out there enough. So it's a guide, but it's not a good guide. But then it's been you learning how to move beyond that and realizing, you know, Dr. DeMartini, he says we live in a world of, you know, a magnetic field of a world of negative and positive. You will have 50% of the world who dislike you, and you'll have 50% that like you. So for every dislike, just go, good, I'm getting closer to the likes. Thank you very much.
But I think if you're actually living your purpose, it doesn't really matter. I don't even think about that.
I totally agree.
I couldn't care less
totally agree.
whether people like me or don't like me, as long as I'm living my purpose. You know, that's the only way. It's my job.
But our ego does still come up every now and then. And go,
it does.
We want everyone to like us.
It does, but that's kind of like a lesson for yourself, then, isn't it?
Yes, it is.
You know, yeah.
I know. Yeah.
You know, so I suppose, like, if you look at like your responsibility, like I say to Lisa a lot, you know, it's not your responsibility to keep people make people happy. It's your responsibility to bring into action the insights that kind of come to you. You know,
and their response is always where they're at. We all know.
Yeah. And we're always trying to. But I actually absolutely love what your whole journey, what you've been talking about for the last few minutes, 10 minutes. I was thinking of, like, because I'm a kind of a systems thinker. And being a designer, you know, I see a process, like where the process is. And that was really interesting when Lisa was asking you about the learning part of it. For me, you know, I see when I listen to stories again and again, people's journey always seems to be, you know, the first process of, like, you know, that kind of tightness and that kind of rigidity, you know, in the person, like, you know, they're kind of trapped nearly within themselves or sense of themselves. And then they have this, you know, broken open, where they basically, it's the ego breaking open, and it's like the shell that's being broken open. And then that's when we start to kind of have to come into the journey into the body, because I did the same, Karen. Like, it was my health that kind of started to tell me there was something up. So it was actually the journey into my body through that. And I started to study mindfulness and neuroscience. And for me, because I have that, I like to understand, you know, what's happening with the body. And it was such a relief to know, like, you know, the vagus nerve calming down my nervous system, how that was actually so important, because I became in tune with my body. But when I came in, what happens is so important. And I actually woke up the other morning. I was saying to Lisa, it was funny you showed that book, because I woke up the other morning and I got this really strong message like, the key is the body. The key is the body for women. Because
it is. For men as well.
Yeah, for men as well. But, you know, I think women are more detached. I think men are more in their bodies. You know, they're more physical. They feel their bodies maybe more. Like sometimes women are more detached from sensing our own bodies. So I feel like it's moving into our body to be able to sense our body. And then we're able to receive that intuition, because like everything that you feel or you sense, then it's not so much feelings and emotions, but what are you sensing? So then your sensing ability is start of your kind of guidance, you know, your guidance system, you know, is your body, you know, so you can feel like you were saying, when you're with people that you should be with, you're in an environment that's for you or not for you. It's like, you know, that kind of metal detector I was saying to Lisa, you know, your body becomes the whole sensory, because then when we're communicating as well, we don't just communicate with our voice, we're communicating with our whole body. Is a kind of an area, like, you know, a resonance body, you know, like, so like even when you're in Australia and I'm in Ireland, like we're resonating and you can feel each other, you know. And I think the capacity to be able to feel your own body is a really protective system as well, because if you're disconnected from your body and then you're with a partner that isn't healthy for you and you can't feel that, you have a numbness in you from trauma or whatever, it's very dangerous then, because it's just your head is kind of guiding it. You don't have that sensory kind of connection to yourself, you know, and then to your intuition as well. So I just think that's really amazing in what you're saying. And then also that leads you to your purpose, because you're being guided then and you're feeling the guidance. So it's just such an important point that, you know, yes, we have to, it's about kind of being guided, but how do we get to that? We need to go into our body and understand it, and understand it kind of, you know, I suppose through courses, through awareness, self-awareness, through education as well is important. Like, it really is.
So juicy. What a great conversation. I can't believe we've been talking for like an hour and it's just gone like so fast. Karen, I've put Karen's details in under the video here, so you can find the link to her if you'd like to connect with her. And thank you again for joining us. We'll be back in a couple of days on the Feminine Force Field. Thank you, Karen. It's been such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you so much.
You ladies. We could go on a lot longer.
I know. We have to have you on. We'd have to have you on again, Karen. Just amazing, just absolutely gorgeous talking to you. You're just a beautiful smile and a beautiful soul. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Karen. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.
Thanks.